Now, the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics began within the hour in the French capital, Paris, several hours after some rail routes were disrupted by unknown individuals who lit fires on the signal points, affecting rail transport. Nonetheless, despite the morning hitch, the official start of the Games is currently underway. NTV's sports lead Bernard Ndong is in Paris and is now joining us live with a brief and an update. Bernard, a very good evening to you. Just tell us, what's the latest?
All right, Zainab Ismail, of course, I would have hoped to be at the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics, but this is how the situation is because, of course, they had to restrict the number of people who are going to be able to attend, and that's specifically for media. So you can see in the background, there is a lot of journalists who have not been able to physically attend the opening ceremony because they had a very, very restricted kind of system to ensure that they have a limited number of people who are accessing the opening ceremony. But we still have somebody, of course, who is attending the opening ceremony, and that is Mr. Elias Makori. At least he was privileged to attend the opening ceremony that is currently underway at the River Seine. Now, just to give us a bit of context in regards to this year's opening ceremony, now this is a very totally different one. Of course, the Olympics did start several days ago with rugby sevens, but on Friday morning, it was a very interesting morning in terms of weather. It rained, and I'm sure for the organizers of the opening ceremony, they were a bit uncomfortable because of the weather change, and it rained for about an hour or so, and then, of course, it eased off, and then it rained later in the afternoon. And that definitely affected some of their plans, but at least the opening ceremony is currently under without any hitch in regards to the weather. Now, the biggest talking point was the fact that there were several trains that were disrupted in terms of movement earlier this morning in Paris. Of course, those are the high-speed trains. They're called the TGV, the two Grand Vitesse trains. Now, apparently, it seems there was sabotage in terms of some fires that were lit, affecting some certain signal points. Now, those signal points are very central in ensuring that the trains are able to know the direction that they're going, the stops that they're going, and in terms of even coordination and timing and everything. So it disrupted almost close to 500,000 people who are traveling from different points of Paris. And of course, those ones who are traveling out of France heading towards Europe. So that really, really disrupted movement significantly. And obviously, because of that specific sabotage, that is what it's been termed by French authorities. That sabotage meant that there needed to be a heightened level of security. So as a result of that, there was a lot of security presence. I can tell you for a fact that this is the media center. You can see here there are a lot of journalists from around the world. Now, there's a very, very elaborate security setup here as well. So when you access this particular place, you have to ensure that they check your bags, they check whatever that you're carrying. It's almost similar to what you would experience at the airport, but because of what transpired in the morning when I was coming to the main press center, this is called the main press center, there was a lot of security that even cordoned off a certain area to access, and that of course was just trying to ensure that there is no unsavory characters or anything untoward that will be able to happen here at the main press center, because this is almost the central console in terms of coordination for media, for transport, as well as a lot of other things. It's in a place called Palais in to some extent. Some would say it's the central of Paris to some extent. I'm not too certain, but it's a very, very central establishment. So there's a lot of security presence because of that. And even there's a lot of security presence as well around the streets of Paris as the opening ceremony progresses. We understand that the French security authorities have been able to get support from other nationalities. I've seen personally the German Polizei. I've seen Spanish police here as well. I've seen police officers from around the world as well. I've seen Qataris who are here as well, just to provide, just to complement the security detail here in Paris as the Olympic Games begin. Remember, the Olympic Games began several days ago. The National Rugby Sevens team were in action. There was also football that began. There was also archery that began. So the opening ceremony ideally is the official start of the Paris Games. And you can just see here, there are a lot of journalists from around the world. As the opening ceremony progresses, I'm sure for those who are following the action, it's for them, they just want to understand why this year's opening ceremony is special, is because, one, it's not being held in a stadium. That's the key thing that you need to appreciate, is the fact that it's not being held in a stadium. It's being held on the River Seine. So it's a 6-kilometer stretch. So it began about 30 minutes, 1 hour ago, I beg your pardon, at around 8:30 East African time. That is when it started, and I can tell you for facts that it's been about an hour or so, and obviously it's an opening ceremony that has a French touch. They've tried to do things slightly different, because most of the opening ceremonies have been held inside a stadium, but this time around it's being held in the Seine. And obviously Kenyans will be waiting keenly to see the Kenyan continent. Remember, the Kenyan continent will be walking out, but not walking out, will be on a boat per se, because it's about 90 plus boats that has the different athletes. Remember, the Olympic Games will have about 10,500 athletes who will be competing in a multidisciplinary sporting spectacle. So Kenya will have Ferdinand Omanyala, Triza Atuka. Triza Atuka is a volleyballer making her debut at the Olympics. Ferdinand Omanyala will be making his second appearance at the Olympic Games. Now, these two individuals are the ones who will be carrying the Kenyan flag on the boat because they go alphabetically. They started with Greece because that is where the history of the Olympics began. So they usually start with Greece. So after that, of course, it's going to be alphabetically. We've seen Albania, we've seen Angola, we've seen Aruba, all the other countries that are going to be participating in the Olympics. And Kenyans will be waiting with bated breath to see the Kenyan contingent and obviously the outfit that they're going to be wearing at the Olympics. Well, that's just an idea of what is happening as the Olympics start. Official start is today. It started several days ago, but it will be concluding on the 11th of this month in Paris.
Certainly, Bernard Ndong is in